So two quick things that kind of touch on what people said here, and I just want to clarify, because we started talking about kind of your passion for French food. I just want to make sure people, because I know the people in this room
and
get
North Italian food.
But I want to make, because
and when holidays come along, matzo balls.
Because there's someone who's constantly debating, folks on this issue. There's a misconception that, well, people are addicted to French food, right, or passionate about French food, but we're not banning French food.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So the difference, and this kind of relates to the gentleman's question earlier, the marketing practices used for casinos are unparalleled in America. It's the most predatory business in the country today, so bar none. And there's a very prominent, you may be familiar with him, prominent treatment person named Robert Breen at Rhode Island. He runs the Rhode Island Gambling Treatment Program.
Actually, I know.
And he has said publicly and on television that that pretty much anyone can, under the right circumstances, almost anyone can get addicted to slot machines. Okay? So when we talk about French food and so forth, I just want to make sure people, this is an incredibly addictive product, that they, like the tobacco companies, will give out free play when they come into a marketplace. Okay, the local French restaurant doesn't give me $100 worth of free food to come down and try it.
And we know how honest the tobacco industry was.
That's right. So
So
so giving out free play is the number one way of they creating the gambler. So people say we have addictive tendencies in our society, but this is a business. We're creating addicts. Just so we're clear, we're creating addicts, not just helping people who have addictive tendencies. And I also want to say that the French chef at the restaurant, he eats his own food.
Right.
This is the only product or service in America where the people who own it and promote it don't use it. All the casino owners, they don't personally gamble. Most of our public officials don't personally gamble either. So that's what differentiates it from other products in the marketplace. So that was my first thing. So I don't know if you want to clarify a little bit about this Robert Breen's point about that everyone's, under the right circumstances, that slots are so addicted that anyone can get addicted to them. But then my second question really relates to this idea of, you asked, why is the public health community silent on this issue, right? And much of it is, I spoke at the National Council of Problem Gambling Conference last fall. The gambling interests in this country have made a deliberate attempt, unlike the tobacco companies, instead of denying there's a problem, they sink all their resources into minimizing the problem. So don't deny, minimize. So that's been the strategy. So much of the public health community in America today has been quiet on this issue. The gambling interests fund the research, and that's a big part of it. So I wonder if your thoughts about how we engage the public health community, so get more folks like you standing up on the front lines and saying, hey, this is wrong.
Well, the first question, you talked about this issue, you asked about this issue of can anybody become addicted to gambling? And there's a boast actually by Skinner many decades ago that given enough time, he could do what's called auto-shaping of the schedule of reinforcement to get anybody to key press for a particular type of return or reinforcement.
Like 5 days a week, right?
Right. So, it depends. If you give them enough leeway, they can, in a sense, auto-shape the form of reinforcement that will work for you. Okay? And these people, that's why there's a variety of games. That's why all the slot machines are quite different. There's a whole set of them. They're not all the same because, if they were all the same and there are 500 of them, then they're trying to just deal with a lot of people coming in and a lot of demand. But they're not. They're quite variable. There have been different types of schedules set in for different machines. This is very important because there's no one answer for how to auto-shape your reinforcement and change with a game. Okay.
And that's what the consumer cards are for. So that's why they track you play with the cards.
Right. That's another piece. Keep in mind, this is very much related to this whole issue of behavioral tracking, which a lot of people are very concerned about. This issue that you use spyware to see where you're going on the internet. They use a very similar type of process with regard to what you actually do in the casino. They mark every step you do, what you consume, basically trying to get a sense of what you do, and then figure out, in a sense, what is the effective intervention for you. So, these people are very sophisticated. I think I'm a pretty good psychologist and my colleagues are pretty good. These people are as good.
And how about thoughts about getting your peers involved in the public health community to speak out on this?
Well, part of the problem is it's very hard to get funding. I have to speak right now as a neuroscientist and mathematical psychologist. It is really hard to get funding right now. Okay, I'm one of the better funded people. I'm worried about whether I'm going to be able to keep my Mass General office open. It's purely open on soft funding. So I only have a lab there with 10 people on the basis of being able to put in grants and get funding back from this peer-reviewed process. Now, what happens with peer review? When funding gets tight, as it is now, there hasn't been an increase in the funding level at NIH since 2003, meaning the funding level has gone down by 4.8% from the inflation every year. And the biotech industry is a 4.8% inflation rate. So our level is going down, meaning that everybody's fighting for things even more. You know what happens in that context in a peer-reviewed system. Nobody's going to let anybody get any grants. Could you imagine if businessmen had to actually go through a peer-reviewed system to get contracts from the government? Nobody would get anything. And so the problem right now is I would love to do research in this. I don't have a single grant focused on this. I have to siphon money away from my other grants to study this stuff, okay? The type of stuff I can get funding for doing real-time imaging. It's a technological development thing. I can get funding for looking at 2 different parts of the brain and how they structurally interact in normals and then how they're altered in one specific type of addiction. It's really hard. I mean, if I were to put in a grant to really look at the societal aspects of gambling, I think it would be very hard to get it funded. And so I'm just raising this issue. I would love to go and do this research, guys. My hands are tied, okay? There's a lot. I mean, if you wanted me, for instance, if you wanted me to go and be able to give you all the subtypes of depression right now, okay, and use neuroimaging to be able to diagnose them accurately, I could guarantee you I could give it to you in 2 to 3 years. I cannot get funding for that. And the other questions you're asking, almost virtually impossible to get funding for that right now. Things are so tight.